You may have heard about the often told story of the frog in a pot of boiling water. The story goes that if the frog is just put in boiling water directly, the frog jumps out. But if the frog is put in water and the temperature is increased slowly and it is brought to a boil, the frog gradually gets accustomed to the increase in temperature and the discomfort and eventually dies. A new book called The Indian Citizen This Frog, and the temperature is gradually increasing. That is, the diminishing rule of law in the country is on a rise. And the book then sets to answer the question as to how to stop this boil. The book that I'm talking about is Unshackling the Elephant. Hello, I'm Apurva Mandhani, and I have with me the author of this book, Mr. Anand Prasad. Anand has over 3 decades of experience. He's a corporate commercial lawyer. He co-founded the law firm Trilegal. He also established his own political party in between, founded on classic liberal values. And in 2019, he found his current firm, which is AP and Partners. Thank you for joining us, Anand.
Thank you, Apurva.
The book, of course, has a really interesting title, so we'll begin from there, Unshackling the Elephant. How did the idea come about and what is the story behind it?
So the sense was principally driven by my experience functioning as a lawyer. It was also an experience that sort of showed what most of us believe to be true, is that we have a very robust legal system. And that's true, we do have a very robust legal system. The tragedy is that most of it is in the textbooks. When you encounter something untoward, you actually find it challenging to operationalize the legal system to work effectively for you.
Right.
And you'll find people complaining about this in various ways. Mostly they'll put it in terms of delay, how long the system takes to deliver justice, how expensive it is, how for some people who have gone through the process of delay and expense, they'll say why sometimes the outcomes are not what they thought it would be, how it has become different. And therefore, while we do have a lot of theory around how people should sort of live their lives and how it should be comfortable and easy and rule driven, it's very difficult to bring the bogie back onto the rails if you get knocked off for some reason. And so that's what drove it. It principally came from also my experience for one particular client who ended up spending a lot of money, finally did get some form of justice, but it also made me realize how it's very expensive to get justice in India.
So that is what
And
you're trying to, the unshackling bit is that.
so
How do
the
you free it?
unshackling bit, partly, so the book was essentially driven by that. The other element of unshackling was, and it comes from economy and it comes from Indian culture and how we sort of culturally think of ourselves in one particular way. Why does that sustain itself? So you'll find lots of people yelling about how culturally we have been sort of colonized. We still have a colonized way of looking at things. It looks at why and how a shift in the legal system or tweaks in the legal system can alter that. It also thinks in terms of how the economy can change. So ease of doing business or sanctity of contract, how you can sort of make contracts more enforceable, or how they can have that value. Sanctity means you're scared to break a contract. So how do you bring about a culture where something like that happens? How do you therefore bring about a culture where it is easy to do business and the speed at which money revolves goes much faster than we do today? So today, whenever there is a money transaction, you think in terms of, am I secure? Is somebody out to cheat me? You have to think a lot. So money movement becomes very slow. If somebody owes you money, it takes really long for that person to pay you. So how do you deal with these kinds of situations? And if the legal system is to work in a particular manner, all this will become much faster, which will obviously mean much better economic growth. It will also mean far greater opportunity for the common person. I'm not talking only, my experience has been when being a lawyer for big businesses, but I can see how instead of focusing on how to make life easier for big business, if you make it, think in terms of how do I make it easier for the guy selling pakoda on the street, you will automatically result in cleaning up the legal system for larger businesses, medium sized and big business. So that's what drove the book.
So it's not just your experience as a lawyer, though. You have very interesting career arc. You also worked on the ground trying to establish the political party. Are there any specific instances, you mentioned that client, but any other instance that motivated you to focus on the legal system of the country specifically?
So specifically speaking to that particular question, there was once when we were sort of going through, and I spent about a couple of years doing grassroots politics, trying to set up what is said a classic liberal party, which is it was modeled around the old Swatantra party that used to be there. So it's individual liberty and free market oriented principally. Um, what I did encounter at that time is lots of one particular instance where there were a whole host of teachers that came to meet us somewhere in rural India, and their complaint was how they were meant to get salaries of 30,000 rupees a month, how they had to sort of management to delay their money, how they would get 30,000 but had to give kickbacks of 15,000. And when they were asked the question, why don't you protest? He says, if we protest, then we'll be thrown out of the job. We were basically temporary workers, so we are not, they don't have permanent jobs. So what it did, at least to me, show very clearly, and this was sort of, it also gave the sense that this is a problem that is across the board. It's not just one village and one set of teachers. Is how people do these contracts, how you could resile on, and you see it in big business happening. You refuse to comply, then you cut a deal where it becomes better for more profitable for the one who is supposed to, who's obliged to pay you some money. And that is where it's the sense that came to me is okay, these guys have a written contract for 30,000. Why can't they do it? It is because if he goes to at 30,000 rupees, how much do you think cost getting a lawyer will cost them? Can they afford to get a lawyer? What if they get kicked out of the job? Now, if the same thing had happened in the US, I would be praying that somebody does the same thing to me, because what I would do is I would then go to a US court. I will sue the school for God knows how much money, and I would take that damages and retire, because I'll get the kind of compensation that will give me. So because management is aware
Right.
in say a developed nation like the US that you will get hit so badly with the level of damages that you would not dare do anything like that. And therefore, as a teacher, I would be so much confident that my 30,000 rupees is 30,000 rupees. I have to give no kickback, because I can go and otherwise file a civil claim where a lawyer will operate for me on contingent fee basis. So I am also not out of pocket. So I can afford then a lawyer. And if the lawyer sues for, let's say, 10 crore of rupees, I am happy to give that lawyer 2 crores and take 8 crores and retire for the rest of my life. So things like this almost never ever happen in the US. And that is the sense that sort of, speaking specifically for one of the examples that drove me to this kind of thinking, was that particular example of the teachers.
Getting right into the suggestions now, speaking of compensation, one of the suggestions that you mentioned is compensation for people should be able to sue for wrongful prosecution, and this is something that the Supreme Court is also lately considering, whether people should be compensated for wrongful prosecution. One of the question that often comes up in this discussion is how to balance the right of the victim in this, while without discouraging genuine prosecutions or overburdening the court. So what are your suggestions in this regard?
So I don't get into a huge amount of detail on how to do it. My point over there principally is to open the mind of the people in terms of this is what we need to look at. Now
Right.
let me explain what it is. So we have the notion of sovereign immunity in India.
Right.
So a government official, as long as the government official thinks that they are doing the right thing, if they have ended up doing the wrong thing, you cannot prosecute them and they can't be held liable. Now, this is not the case in many developed countries. I mean, you'll see lots of television serials where if the cop wrongly arrests somebody, even if the guy is a criminal, he'll say, I'll sue you for wrongful prosecution. We never even think in these terms.
Right.
Now, what we need to therefore do is to erode the idea of sovereign immunity. It has ceased to exist. It's an imperial idea. It is brought in by the British. It is not as if this idea existed before. So Indian tradition, there was nothing called sovereign immunity. So mythological example, if Dashratha kills somebody by mistake, he has to actually pay the penalty for it. Same goes for Pandu. So they can't claim that, sorry, by error I killed your son, or by error I killed your husband, and therefore I should be
I
sort
was
of,
acting in good
I
faith.
was
Yeah.
acting in good faith, I can't be held liable. That is not an answer in Indian tradition. You will have to have a consequence. Now, I'm not saying that if you make a mistake that you must be sacked or something like that, but it can't be that you have zero consequence. So, if we were to bring in the idea of consequence, then the whole idea of wrongful arrest will. So, what it does, it shifts the pressure back onto, let's say, a prosecutor or a police official or a bureaucrat, and I write it in the context of a judge, even in the context of a judge, is that it is not good enough for you to say that I did my best. And if you think that you can't operate in these circumstances, I would say leave your job. If it's too hot, get out of the kitchen. There are many other people in this country of 1.5 billion people that will take up your job. So it is an imperial idea that we need to leave behind. You should have the ability to sue the state for meaningful damages if a wrong is committed. So if you are acquitted after 20 years of imprisonment, I mean, all your life is gone,
Which happens very
which
often.
happens very often. There is zero consequence for anybody, and it makes, now what the Supreme Court is considering is it's an ad hoc thing under 142. So you will now do a 10 lakh or a 20 lakh. It should be a 20 crore. So when we think in compensation, also we think peanuts, and there is no consequence for the guys that were involved with that wrongful prosecution.
Right.
And that is where the challenge lies, is that we need to start thinking differently, where we need to have empowered citizenry. That is not to say that, and empowered citizenry going hand in hand with a highly professional set of people in governance and investigation and police who are confident. Now think in terms of us. Do we have any sovereign immunity? Do we have protection from claims for wrongful action? We don't.
Right.
Does that stop us from operating? We continue to operate as if. So what we do is we function with a great degree of responsibility to the extent that we can, and we try and make sure that what we do is right and we are not stepping on somebody, etc. This the same ask that I'm saying of somebody else is, just because you're in government, your liability should not be lesser than mine. In the private sector and the public space, I am equally responsible. Somebody can sue me, somebody should be able to sue you.
Right. Talking about thinking differently, another aspect that you address is corporate fraudsters. And you say that perpetrators of corporate and financial fraud should be rendered impoverished, because you say that these people usually know that they have the wherewithal to be able to survive in the jail and live a comfortable life there for a few years at least. So you say impose them with heavy penalties instead of imprisonment. Now, again, India being a country where the perception is that businessmen usually wield significant influence over politics as well as governance, how does that play out?
Now let me respond to it in terms of a question.
Right.
So let's say if I were to be told that you can take 5,000 crores, what you have to do is spend 10 years in jail. I would want to know how many people will say, I don't want the 5,000 crores and I don't want to go to jail. I can bet on it that most people pick the 10 years in jail with 5,000 crores at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
And that is what I am talking about. That is, imprisonment doesn't cut it. We have to accept that. I mean, you can, which one of us, and you look at the sizes of the fraud. See, it's no longer 10 crores and 20 crores that you're
Right.
talking about. For 10 crores and 20 crores, I'll not spend 10 years in jail. But when the size becomes 5,000 crores, 15,000 crores, it is massively attractive to most people. We need to recognize that fact of human behavior, and then our laws must factor in that behavior and then try and deal with that situation. Today, there's a great incentive to actually, so You see, you look at the number of people that are in jail or have run away from the country and sort of battling it out. But they're all living comfortable lives.
Right. And questioning the legal system of the country to not be brought
Yeah,
back.
yeah, yeah. So they are. It's not only those guys. I know of people who are in jail who say कि अब मैंने सब comfortable कर लिया. Now, so they are living basically they are living a great life. So it doesn't imprisonment might emotionally feel nice to you, but it is not a disincentive when the magnitude of fraud is that kind. At 5,000 crores, 10,000 crores, most people will give 10 years of their life to
Right.
take that money.
Now, on public interest litigations, you quote an international client of yours in the famous 2G telecom license cancellation judgment. You say that the client had said that in other countries we have regular coup d'etats, but in your country, PILs are like coup d'etats. They have constitutional authority and are executed by the courts. Now, PILs, of course, have been on the rise. There's several thousands every year. Do you attribute the rise, at least not the current PILs, but do you attribute this to a lack of faith in the legislature or lack of efficiency? Because I mean, if you go to see initially, even after the Vishakha judgment, it took about 15 years for the Posh Act to come around. Is that what you attribute the rise to, at least?
So the rise, if you see, there were no PILs in the early days of our
Right.
independent existence. So it started with Justice Bhagwati. That was one off case at one time, and then it's now become an animal of itself. So if you see, going hand in hand is a failing in governance. So when governance does not work, when administratively you're not performing,
Right.
or you seem to be performing poorly, it is no longer good enough. And this is across. So judges are also part of human society. You also feel the need to intervene. The whole idea of a democratic process is that in 5 years' time, if you don't like somebody, you change them. But there is so much that happens in that 5 years that I can't wait for the end of the 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, some emotional thing happens and people forget about everything else.
Yeah.
So there is a huge desire, and that is what the courts respond to, huge desire to get immediate recourse, which is what drives the PIL system. So there was, initially it came about in a certain context, it's now evolved, and now you will see most constitutional courts spend a lot of their time doing PILs. And in the context of a coup, it is basically courts taking over administration. Uh, it has great resonance among civil society because we love it. There's somebody who's doing something about, because with government, what do? You make a representation, it goes into a waste dustbin, nobody hears you, there's no consequence. The problem is it is great immediate satisfaction. What does it do to your constitutional framework of operation? Is that our constitutional framework, I won't get into sort of theoretical ideas
Yeah.
about segregation of judiciary and executive and legislature. The whole scheme is executive and legislature will do what they have to do. You have somebody sitting over there, which is the judiciary, that reviews what they are doing. Are they doing correct or are they doing wrong? Because the idea is that anybody who takes administrative decisions can take arbitrary decisions because they are vested with that power. Legislature can also do something like that. So there is a reviewing body. Your job is principally to review. Now, if you become the administrative body, you become the decision maker, there is actually nobody above you to review. Only God exists, as one Supreme Court judge once said. Above me is only God. So it is then it is then a problem for the entire mechanism. I'm not saying, theoretically I can say constitutional sort of you're transgressing segregation of powers. But it's more than that. It is, for example, you take these like those liquor vents, and there are many things like that. How many of
Along the
us
national highways, liquor
along the
vents.
national highways? How many of us appear like the idea of the Supreme Court figuring out how Indian cricket should be run? I mean, I don't even see cricket anymore. So that is where the challenge lies. Is that yes, PILs have become large because there is a governance failure. You look at the public confidence in legislature is abysmal. Today, it is executive. When I say today, for the last maybe 30 odd years, It is executive that drives legislation. Legislators just go and put a thappa bay because you have the whip system. So nobody can actually vote differently. So
Right.
party in majority will always get their laws through. It's very rare that they will fail. So legislature also is not operating well enough. It's basically executive that is driving most of the process. And executive also does what it does for its own reasons. Um, and therefore there is this frustration that builds which drives people to courts. What I suggest is instead of courts, now what happens is that when you transgress those lines, it's also you get habituated, bad habits grow on you. So you start enjoying the fact that I can actually do some change environment. I can do something to change, ban Diwali crackers, impose a ban on diesel vehicles for 10 years. So you feel that I'm doing something because government is not doing anything. The problem is there is no review system above you, and you get into the bad habit of wanting to do things. So therefore you end up monitoring cricket, which is maybe very interesting for many people, but is not very interesting for many other people. So those are the sort of problem areas. So my solution to something like that is, given the nature of our executive and our legislature and how they are sort of not operating in the best possible form, is that maybe it makes sense for the courts to give up their PIL jurisdiction, vest it in administrative bodies which are specific, sort of maybe retired judges, or there's a specific tribunal whose job is to entertain these failures of governance and in legislature. So if you want to do constitutional challenges, you please go to the court. But if you've got administrative challenges, which is essentially what PILs deal with, you have a public forum at which you can, it's like a court.
Right.
And they will have the ability to pass orders. Those are then subject, those orders are subject to Supreme Court review.
It'll also free up the Supreme Court's
It
time
will
in
free
taking
up the
up
Supreme
the
Court side.
PILs.
See, it's also so much more, pardon me for using the term, so much more sexier if I'm seeing to be doing the right thing. I become more popular, more famous. Who doesn't like fame? It's not, I
Right.
won't hold it against anybody. So there are a lot of drivers that are resulting in this sort of behavior being sort of, it's warping the system, it's warping the constitutional framework, principally because our system of act and somebody to review is getting diluted, because now the reviewer has become the actor.
Right.
So there is no more reviewing anymore.
And the reviewer might also not have the expertise every time to
So
deal with
very often,
everything.
does not have any expertise. So for example, since you mentioned the 2G case, you cancelled all licenses because you said everybody got acquitted. So think in terms of, when you cancel licenses, it sounded great, everybody was very thrilled, but you eroded billions of dollars of investment, which actually meant a lot of employment for lots of people. It means lots of smaller businesses collapsed for getting zero conviction. So you don't have the expertise. You take one petitioner or two petitioners, you take some documents that they're throwing in your direction. Those documents and evidence are not tested as for evidentiary value. So
Right.
if you want this sort of system, which is summary justice system, then I would say let's be very clear, then that's the route that we want for everything. Why do you have beyond reasonable doubt in criminal justice? Let's also have the same system. So if you are happy to erode billions of dollars of investment, put lots of businesses out of, small businesses that support big businesses, you make them go bankrupt, you're happy for people to lose their jobs. Why is it bad for some accused that who you think is a murderer to be executed? That's only one person dead. So it doesn't, I'm not saying that that is the route we should take, but what I'm saying is that the entire PIL system that is based on one petitioner making a certain plea and your inability to test it for evidence and for
Right.
value. Also think in terms of, in PILs, there are PILs that are filed. I have no role. Supreme Court passes a judgment and says it's binding on everybody. But nobody's ever heard me.
And it may impact you.
So it'll have an
It'll,
impact on
yeah.
me. So now you are actually passing judicial orders that impact my life. If it is government and that impacts me, I can go to court. Today what happens is, if I go to court saying it's impacted me, they'll say, no, this has been going over for a while, we can't hear you, dismissed. So judges also don't have the patience to hear. They can't, because it's such a large country. That volume is too big. If I once I take a judicial decision, it's very hard to keep entertaining new people that are raising the same issue. So you won't. But the consequence of that not entertaining new people who are coming up saying you did not hear me and I'm impacted in this way is that you have now put in place you're putting in place gradually a legal framework that comes with a degree of lack of education, whether that kind of law should be framed, the impact that will have on people. So that assessment, which is meant to be done at a legislative and executive level, doesn't happen because you're in a small courtroom and you've got a lot of work pressure, you've got other
Right.
things to do. So you sort of, it's a very emotional reaction. So like they say, हींग थोड़ा सा दाल में डालो तो दाल अच्छा रहता है, बहुत ज़्यादा हींग डाल दोगे तो दाल is not edible. So that's what is, to my mind, happening with the PIL.
When we talk about judges, also, you've made quite a few suggestions from their performance review to even the appointment mechanism. We'll just speak about the appointment mechanism. You suggest a US like system of appointments where judges are nominated by the president, but they have to be confirmed by a Senate Judiciary Committee, which holds confirmation hearings for all nominees. How does that work? Because you also mentioned about the legislature and how there's a lack of faith there, lack of functioning there, and in the past few years we've seen one single party dominating the legislature with a significant majority. So how would that play in a country like
So
India?
we have to, it then goes to a certain set of, so it comes to my classical liberal values, which is individual liberty. And it then begs the question that do we like the idea of universal adult franchise, which is every individual,
Right.
regardless of your level of understanding, you have the same vote. Do we like that as an idea? Everybody will say
Of
yes.
course, yeah.
How are you saying I'm not liking the consequence of that? Because now that I have freedom, I can decide to vote on whatever basis. On the basis of my emotion, on the basis of my caste, on the basis of my prejudice, I can vote on any basis. You can't now put fetters on me to say that you will not vote on the basis of prejudice, you will not vote on the basis of A, you will not vote on the basis of B. So if once you accept the idea of universal adult franchise, you have to accept, unless you're saying elections are rigged, basically you have to accept whatever comes in form of legislature.
Right.
As an intelligent person, I can see it is not operating well. But that is the decision that I've taken when I say I agree with universal adult franchise. So if I am going to say that this is the mechanism that I want, otherwise you've got to dismantle our form of democracy. Then you say that only a certain, like in Rome, etc., it used to be, or ancient India, that there would be a set of people, uh, there will be an electoral college that will decide who will rule or who will go into legislature. Either you take the electoral college is not as if it's new. It happens of course in the Rajya Sabha, but it happens in legislative councils, where based on electoral colleges, not everybody doesn't get to vote there. So it's not an idea alien to us, but we have not accepted that. We remain very proud that before the US did, we did universal adult franchise. The consequence of that is this. Now, if that is the mechanism that you have sought, and those are the people, if it is reflecting the will of the people, then regardless of how the educated elite may feel about that will, I may find how they behave, how they function, how they dress, how they eat, how they live their lives distasteful. But that is the system that we have said yes to. Therefore, you have to live with the distaste in your mouth. You have to then allow for that to play out fully. And therefore, I say that you basically go and see, it's no different in the US. It's not as if they love their congressmen and they love their senators.
Right.
So there is a lot of disenchantment that you will see even in the US. So disenchantment with the legislature does not tie in with disenfranchising legislature in this manner. Now, I also have my big problem with the collegium system. Just look at proof of the pudding lies in its eating. Look at the quality of the judges that came before the collegium and look at the quality of the judges that came after the collegium. Ask most lawyers, ask most people in public space, ask most editors. They'll all tell you judges of the old are much better. So there is a problem with judges selecting judges it is also because a lot of the selection process involves a degree of lobbying. There's nothing wrong with it. It's
Invariably, yeah.
legitimate. It changes the character of who you decide how do you want to appoint somebody. Now, in an open system, what you're doing is, so you insulate judges from lobbying behavior. So there is no more collegium. Judges are doing just justice delivery. Their job is not administrative. Their job is not picking who needs to be the next judge. So all lobbying then begins to happen at the legislator level. So you go at the party level, etc., which used to be the case even earlier. But ultimately, the way, at least in my head as I see it, the balance is in the favor of that. One, because the principle of universal adult franchise and democracy, as we believe, you can dislike your legislators, but that is what you have chosen.
Right.
Now, if you don't like it, if you don't like the outcome, then you need to rethink whether I like universal adult franchise. But to the day you live with universal adult franchise, there is no out, you can't subvert it. On the one hand, you say, let me get everybody to vote. Now you're thinking of ways of subverting that power that you have given to the common man. So, rickshawala, poor fellow, he decides that I have a role to play, but suddenly you are now figured out a clever way of subverting his authority by defranchising the legislative body. So, I'd say the power should, earlier we didn't have, it didn't go to parliamentary committees. It went to, executive would do it along with the Chief Justice. Used to be our old system. This is now the NGAC sort of idea. Again, there it's sort of, it is not a people's body. And in my view, the power must go back to the people. So that is a classical liberal value. It is, I do strongly believe in the power of the people. And it is let the people stumble, fall, learn, and change behavior.
Right.
But unless you fall, you will not change behavior. So falling is a necessary thing.
And not infantilize people and their choices as well, which brings me to my next
Yeah,
question
yeah.
of you have a very interesting bit about gun control, gun licensing. It's a debate that we've often heard in context of the US, but what have you suggested here? Do you think people should be allowed to freely carry guns? What are your suggestions in this aspect?
So it's principally driven by a couple of things. One is the state of a criminal justice system. How effective is it? And therefore, how safe is a victim? How often does a victim get justice? And how free is a criminal? Because the fear is only the first time you go to jail. In my view, once you go to jail, then all shackles are gone, and then you are willing to go to jail many times. So it's the balance between the criminal and the victim that is one driver. It is giving the victim the right to defend themselves. The second driver is the whole idea about taking away the right to carry weapons, which is whether it is knives more than 6 inches or it is guns. It's basically an imperial idea. It's brought in by the British to control the Indian people and Indian civilization. So they did things like Criminal Tribes Act. So people who were beyond control, they just made them criminals when they are born. The other thing is they did this. Now you look at, we think of gun control situation only in the context of the US, but most of Western Europe has, they have easy gun licensing. Many of them carry guns. In Japan, they carry weapons as well. Most civilized nations do not live in fear of weapons the way we have been taught. So that is decolonizing. So it is the Brits taught us to be like that. We continue to now behave as if it was an idea that we have always civilizationally grown with. You look at most of our deities, they all are got, Hindu gods have got weapons in their hands. Very few of them don't have weapons in their hands. So we are not a subservient weak people. So what it did also is it sort of civilizationally it made us more subservient. Now you test some of these ideas that people will have in the context of gun control. There are two communities in India allowed to carry weapons. One is the Sikhs, they are allowed to carry swords. Then there are the Kurgis who are allowed to carry guns, who have guns in their house. You don't find Kurgis going around shooting around people, nor do they, if you see Sardars beheading people. So merely because you have guns doesn't mean that you're going to use it in a illegal manner. Now carrying gun doesn't mean you have a freedom to commit crime. All those other laws remain. So crime is a crime. But you do give the power to defend yourself. The question also ought to be asked of some woman who is suddenly faced with a very difficult situation where there are menacing criminals, would she have liked a gun in her hand or not? Similarly, if there is one person who is going somewhere, is being mugged by somebody, would he have liked a gun in his hand or not? Or you look at somebody kidnapping somebody's child and the father or the parents looking at the kidnapping happening, would they have liked to have a gun in their hand or not? And that is where it's more balance in favor of rebalancing the power that the natural power that is God given in the hands of the victim, because we have now taken it away by an act of law, which is basically British law, which we believe in. So until the time that you have a fully robust and functional criminal justice system that both offers protection as well as justice, if crime happens and it offers justice quickly enough, people should be allowed to defend themselves. So that's principally it. There's a lot more when you
Of
get into
course,
something
for
like
our
this.
viewers to read the book and
Yeah,
dive
yeah.
into it. You begin the third chapter of the book with a question: should laws of the country be in alignment with the cultural character of its people? Now, I have a two-part question on this. Is this the debate that you're addressing with regard to constitutional morality versus public morality, where the courts have said that public morality or popular morality is, must it's the constitutional morality which must prevail over public or popular morality? That's one. Second is, how does this idea work in a country, multicultural country like India, if we have to align our laws with the culture of the people?
So think of it. So this whole debate about constitutional morality, it is one particular judge that brought up the idea.
Right.
It did not exist before that. And morality, as most of us understand it. So what is constitutional morality? It's not been interpreted anywhere. There are no rules around it. There are no principles around it. I feel today that the excess constitutional morality, I'll call it constitutional morality. Because I'm a judge of the Supreme Court, everybody else is to fall in line. Functionally, jurisprudentially, there is nothing like that because there are no clear defining principles around it. Uh, now the question is, what is morality? So forget about constitutional morality. Most of us will agree that morality is an idea that keeps shifting every decade.
Right.
So what men were allowed, were okay to do at one time, are no, or not okay to do at one time, has become freer now. So for example, alcohol consumption was a taboo 30 years back. I don't think it's a taboo anymore. Uh, I mean, one of my observations was that we used to think that most boys end up. I mean, when I went to school and college, boys would smoke more. And then when I was in my law firm, you'd see most people standing outside and smoking with women. So, what are taboos keep changing? What is morality keeps changing? And you'll see it even in the kind of clothes that people wear, how my daughters behave. It's very different. So, it keeps shifting. So, it's not, my point is not around the idea of morality. It's not constitutional morality. It is around what is morality. Let's put it like this: what is dharma? So if you think in terms of, now it's very easy to say that we should have dharmic laws, etc. Then you ask people what is dharma, then they'll start fumbling. Uh, but basically, when you talk in terms of things like dharma, karma, etc., then you talk in terms of you're in Kali Yuga. So where nobody understands, the definition of Kali Yuga is nobody understands dharma clearly. So what is dharma in our age is what we consider as a basic idea of fairness and justice. Now the basis of law, and when I talk about something like that, is that you align the law with the thought of the people, is that there should be a natural connect between the law and the people. You shouldn't have a law with the people don't even understand. They don't even realize that this is law. I'll give you an example. So our laws are principally English and Europe borrowed. Those are the principles. Even today, when we devise our laws, our people are framing laws will say we'll make the best law in the world. So basically, you're in comparative. You're not creating a law that responds to your people. You want to see the rest of the world to see how your law is. So it's a comparative thing. So you are, in that sense, when you say things like that, you're still stuck with that colonization idea. You should essentially be responding to the people. And I come to the idea that I am describing. So let's say I'm a poor person, um, and I want to set up a pakoda shop. I've, at that level of society, when I'm setting up a pakoda thela on the street somewhere, my options are that I either go to work for somebody, कहीं पे किसी के घर में मजदूरी करूं. I do have a third option of becoming a criminal. So I choose not to be a thief, I choose not to be a bootlegger, I choose not to be a criminal mobster. Because it's, I mean, in some ways, you'll say that why shouldn't I become a criminal? I'll join a gang. I'll live a glorious, glamorous life. One day somebody will shoot me. After 10 years, they'll make a movie out of it. So that's not a bad way of looking at it as well. What then is driving the mind of the person who is setting up the pakoda shop? He doesn't want to go to work somewhere because he wants to do more with his life. So think in any place. So let's say a domestic help son wants to do some business, sets up a pakoda shop. He gathers some 50,000 rupees from, he'll come and borrow from you, etc. What is the level of understanding of what is required legally of him? His view is that I'll set up, I'll buy good quality, I'll do safe equipment so that, because if there's an explosion, I'm going to get hurt first. So I'll sit in a place which is clean, etc. I'll try and clean the place. I'm not talking about the guys who spread filth, but the guys who want to do a nice job. So I'm doing that. I set up a pakoda shop. Immediately, he's violated a minimum of 4 laws without knowing that he is violated. So it depends on which state you are in. 4 to 6 laws you are violated, right from Explosive Act to you need a municipal license, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it is illegal operation on day one. The question that you have to ask yourself is the law a reflection of the will of people that come from his class of people? Or is it the will of those who want to drive cars, who want clear roads? And I would say that it is will of the elite more. I'm just taking this one as a small example, but you'll find that this exists all through the place. Is that a lot of our people believe that they are doing an honest job, whereas in fact they're committing illegality. And it is not, my principal driver is, it's not so much our governments are based sort of concerned with how do I decriminalize a lot of the laws. It's not, you decriminalize it for that poor fellow who wants to actually put a couple of square meals a day. Make the law easy for him so that today he sets up a pakoda shop, he runs a good business. In 10 years' time, he can have 10 pakoda shops. Allow him to grow. Don't force him to stay under the radar, because as soon as he sets up the next one, you then clamp down on him. Even the first one is subject to extortion from all kinds of people. So that law, I would say, is not reflecting the will of the people. Again, when it comes to environmental standards, you'll find similar. So these kinds of laws exist across the board, where it is not a reflection of the will of the people. It is subscribing to the standards set up in a developed nation, like in Europe. You have a certain level of environment, you have a certain water quality. Suddenly, you want your cold drinks to have a certain level of purity. How? When I dig into Indian water, then it comes with a level of contamination.
Right.
So you're unrealistic when you set up these standards. You're unrealistic when you say that somebody who sets up a pakoda shop must get 4 licenses. Poor fellow, there's no way that he will even understand how to fill forms.
So when you talk about bringing the laws in line with the cultural character of its people, more than, I mean, looking at it from multicultural lens, it's about the will of the people and what the people at the lowest
It is.
hierarchy might want and understand.
So if I take a jurisprudential part to explain this, so where does law come from? The law comes from a certain kind of basic morality that exists in people. For many people, the morality comes from religion. Then morality, as it goes stronger, turns into law. But there is it's public morality that turns into law. Our public morality, like you rightly said, could be very varied because we are a
Right.
diverse set of people. So you need to think in terms of how do you want to frame your law, because it is your people. You are not meant to frame laws based on what Europe thinks or what the population in Europe thinks. They may have very similar views. Then you have to think in terms of how do you set up your state. So they have very similar, because they have got Christianity all pervasive, or somebody's got Islam all pervasive. They can make their laws that are aligned. You people understand their religion and therefore understand their morality. Therefore have a natural understanding of the law. In our country, our morality has nothing to do with the law. So, for example, I'll give you another example. It's a slightly more drastic one. So, you watch a Bollywood movie. The hero at the end of it has a choice of arresting the villain or killing the villain. When the hero shoots the villain or kills the villain, you'll see maximum applause. If he's arrested, you'll see a lot of disappointed people going out. Our morality is, we want, once you're sure that somebody is a criminal, we want swift execution. We are not people who like the idea of long process. We want to make sure that nobody gets hit wrongly, that there is no illegal, some innocent is not hit. But once you're, so for example, Ajmal Kasab, our thinking is, why should he have 4 years? It is very clear that he is a terrorist. Why should he spend 4-5 years at taxpayer? Execute him straight away. That's the disconnect, and therefore you will see that behavior happen in terms of, when you look at criminal law, it caters to a Western view of how criminal law is shaped as against what our people want immediate reaction. So you'll find a lot of Bollywood movies will say राम को कौन से judgment की जरूरत थी रावण को मारने के लिए. So there are things like that. We think differently, and therefore our people react differently. So you will find that people will go and assault somebody. Assault is wrong and it's a crime, but he will say कि इसने मेरे बहन को छेड़ा था तो मैंने उसको मारा. But that is a crime, he will get imprisoned. But he thinks he is doing the right thing. So that's where the disconnect is, that the people think they are doing the right thing, but you have framed laws because they are a reflection of a colonial idea or a Western idea. Your people have no clue that what they are doing is wrong. Now, because there's 75 years of movie making, etc., now you watch movies, you now understand that hitting somebody is wrong, but you still, there's social justification. Nobody who goes and beats up somebody because his sister was harassed by that person, in Indian society, you will find that the person will not be seen as a villain.
But is this sort of so you talk? I mean, what is the solution for this? Is it bringing the law in alignment with the culture of the people, or is it making the people more aware of the law? Is it like a middle ground where you do both the things? Because
So as framers of law, there is a need to be acutely aware that this is how my people think. And therefore you come to a middle path, because see, what people think has also changed, because it's easy for me to say colonial mindset, but we have had 75 years of independence, all colonial in my view, and pre that 150 years of English rule. So we have had a good 350 years, a great grandfather, his grandfather, everybody has lived with that viewpoint. So we are, as a people, we are mixed up in the way of thinking. Our certain instincts are similar, but we are very mixed up. We need to now recognize that we are mixed up, not pander to how an European might look at us or how an American might look at us. Look at what my people think, frame a law which has resonance in the people. So I don't need to know the law that this is, to do this is wrong. My own sense of morality must tell me to do this is wrong. So for example, theft. All of us recognize that theft is wrong.
right.
So the public morality is wrong. I don't need an penal code of some sort to say that theft is wrong.
Why I ask that question is also because, for example, I mean, this is again an extreme example, but if you look at something like honor killing, within that community, honor killing might be really, I mean, it is called honor killing. It might be considered moral. But how do you bring that in alignment with
So, so again, it comes to how happy are you with the universal adult franchise? So were you clever when you did it, or were you stupid when you did it? If a large majority of this country's people believe that honor killer is the right thing to do, that is what should get reflected in your law. If it's a minority that believes, then that minority can't be allowed to prevail. So it's not the minority can't, every small minority can't have a new law for itself. So it is the will of the majority that will prevail. So if the majority believes that honor killing is wrong, then it should be wrong.
You mentioned dharma. You've also mentioned Ram Rajya in the book and the understanding of dharma in that context. Is that something that you want us to look back when framing our laws?
No. I want us to stop deceiving ourselves that we will ever be able to frame a dharmic set of laws. So the constitution, the idea of the, so there's a lot of talk in terms of constitution being made dharmic. So what is dharmic constitution? So when, as soon as you use the word constitution, it says that there must be a single book that actually runs a whole system. The idea of a single book is biblical in nature. So the idea of a constitution is biblical in nature, that you need to have the same set of laws. For us, what was dharma? Dharma for different people in different organizations is different. Dharma in different situations is different. Your dharma will be different from my dharma. If I am born in a community of thieves, thievery is my dharma. It will not be your dharma. Very often, our dharmas will be in conflict. For people where the dharmas are in conflict, how do you make one law? So we are past this stage. Maybe for Satya Yuga, etc., Treta and all, it was okay. Dwapar, Treta, it was okay. Kali Yuga, it's all mixed up. So there is, we need to stop fooling ourselves that we will actually be able to get to some, calling anything which is dharmic law. So what is dharma for Kali Yuga is, basically we have a sense of equality, which is common to all of us. We have a sense of fairness. So the new dharma for us is not what is written in the ancient scriptures. It is our sense for what is right and wrong today, what is appropriate and what is not appropriate today. So if we think in those terms, that is the new dharma. If you look at what is Ramarajya, what is Ramarajya? Ramarajya is where the state is listening to the last man. I'm not saying whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for what Rama to do to listen to a dhobi, but he is listening to the one voice that is there somewhere. Does our state listen to anybody's voice? It has never listened to the last man. So we need to be a state that thinks, understands, is responsive to what our people are saying. Now, I'm not saying if the vast, again, it's a question of whether one man's view, one last man, you have to hear him. You have to explain why you disagree with him and do what you think is right. It is not to say you listen to the last man and you do whatever he wants. So that's where it differs from Rama in some ways. But the need to listen to the last person is Ramarajya.
On that note, we've reached the end of this video. For our viewers, of course, there's a lot more that Anand has written in his book on all the issues that we discussed and more. So do go check it out. Thank you so much for joining us,
Right, well,
Anand.
thank you, Apurva.
For all our viewers, thank you for watching. Do let us know in the comment section what you thought about this discussion. Thank you.